Hello, hello. I'm a little fuzzy. Let me see if I can focus that in a little bit better. There we go. There we go. All right. This is Debate Prep Live. We are going to be talking about increasing felon voting rights. Now, this is the fifth in a series of election reform topics, and so. What we do is we're going to be focusing on the affirmative constructive speech only. Now, that is the very first speech in a debate. You get 5 minutes in the type of debate that we're doing. It's called IPDA, International Public Debate Association. And uh, so normally what happens is that you're given a topic and you're given 30 minutes to prepare. So I'm going to try to do, what I can within 30 minutes. I'll probably front load a lot of stuff for you. But the point is that we're not going to be doing rebuttals. We're not going to be doing the negative side. We're only going to be focusing on the first 5 minutes. Okay. And I got you set up right now. All right. So take a look. If you can't read this, I'm going to read it for you. But I want to let you know that I'm finding that ChatGPT, there's a certain art form to it about how much level of detail that you give it. It will give you plenty of response, no matter what type of prompt you give it, but give it a little bit of detail. Right. So take a look. Imagine you're the affirmative in a debate on the topic. United States federal government should increase felon voting rights. Generate a 1AC. 1AC is first affirmative constructive. It is a very common term used in debate parlance. All right. And then start with definitions in 4 parts. First, explain how this is a policy resolution. Then define the terms in the resolution, then propose a specific plan with funding and enforcement, then explain this debate will use the criterion of net benefits and what that means. Okay, so that's see, I said that you're going to have definitions in 4 parts. You're going to define the resolution, and then you're going to define terms, and then you're going to define the plan, and then you're going to define the criterion. So those are the 4 parts. All right. The reason you do this is because what you're trying to do is you're trying to walk the audience from the resolution to your particular plan text, and then explain it. So let's take a look what is after this. That you're going to have 2 advantages, each organized around the stock issues of harms, inherency, solvency, and impacts. Now we have video lessons on what stock issues are, and this is going to be an application of that. So let's take a look. Now, I'm using 3.5. I could have done 4.0. Okay. Nice. So first, the introduction as thank you for choosing me to help you prepare your debate. Oh, nice. ChatGPT is so polite. As the affirmative, we strongly advocate for the United States federal government to increase felon voting rights. This is a policy resolution because it proposes a change in the current policies and practices of the U.S. government regarding voting rights and felons. That's absolutely correct. Okay, you can make it a little bit more concise if you want to. In order to clarify our stance, we will define key terms in the resolution. That's great. Nice little preview, but it only previews these terms that, let's see here, and you get down to, look at that. Social justice. Ooh, I like that. And then, so let's go back up here. So that's a nice little introduction. Okay, definition: felon voting rights, increase, and United States federal governments. Those are the 3 terms within the resolution that they're doing. Now, not all of them are going to be absolutely required or necessary, right? The governing body of the United States, including all 3 branches. For that one, you can just say, listen, we think that Congress can pass a law, and that counts as the U.S. government. Okay. To why, in this case, we are advocating for an increased number of felons who are allowed to vote. Oh, that's perfect. Nice. It's like we think that if more people with felonies on their records are allowed to vote after this, then that meets what the definition of increase is. So that's what's known as an operational definition. I think that's great. I think that's awesome. That's what you're trying to do. You could even be a little foreshadowing on which felon voting rights you're going to focus on. But let's take a look what it says for the plain text. Restores a law of voting rights felons that have completed their sentence, including probation and parole. Now, that's important, right? You don't have to Just accept that as the plan text. If you want to, that's fine. But the point is that you can choose different levels. So what I did was I looked up, if this is called felony disenfranchisement. And so there are different levels of felon voting rights across different states. Here's a map of it. And so let's take a look. Some states have some people with felony convictions cannot vote. So that might mean that there are certain crimes, certain felonies that are just unforgivable. You're not allowed to vote ever again. Other felonies, not so much. You can vote again. Then this one is you could vote upon completion of your sentence. This one is people in prison on parole and on parole cannot vote. All other people with criminal convictions, including people on probation, can vote. See how that's different than what ChatGPT put out. So let's take a look. There are, what is it, 1, 2, just these two, New York and Connecticut, looks like the only ones, that have that level. People in prison cannot vote. Everyone else can vote. So that includes being, if you are on parole. So that's just, see, and that's a lot of it. That's looks like upon completion of sentence. Okay. So see, that's a different level as well. Everyone has the right to vote. Look right here. So Maine and Vermont, both of them allow people in prison. They're serving their sentence in prison. They could vote from prison. That's how I'm reading it. So I want to make sure, but everyone can vote. And then all people with felony convictions are permanently disenfranchised. We got a couple here, Virginia and Kentucky. You know what? I think, and I think Virginia is kind of in flux right now. So why am I showing you this? Because ChatGPT is going to give you one of those 6 different options. You could pick any of the other ones to do, right? Except for this one. You can't do all people with felony convictions, because that would not be an increase in felon voting rights. That would be that's the lowest that you can go. Okay, so anything above that, and now if you make that the minimum requirement for all states, right? So if you wanted to be bold and say that everyone has the right to vote, even if they're in prison, I say go for it. In fact, let's take a look what ChatGPT said here. Okay, and so let's go through this case, and then I'm going to generate that one. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. It's like you have variety that you can choose right there. The federal government will enforce this law through the Department of Justice. See, those details, maybe not really all that necessary. Funding to states to ensure that felons who have completed their sentence are aware of their okay. So then there's net benefits, means that we will evaluate advantages versus disadvantages. And then what you do, so take a look from the criterion up to the introduction. That is all your definitions, right? And then what the criterion ends with is that there are, it's going to be advantages versus disadvantages. So here is advantage 1 and advantage 2. Got it? So it's like, all right, this is what the resolution means. I'm going to be advocating that everyone in prison or out, everyone gets to vote no matter what your status. And then here's 2 advantages. And then what you're doing is you're throwing down the gauntlet for your opposition. It's kind of like, I got 2. Do you have any disadvantages? And let's hear them, and let's see if they weigh more than my advantages. Okay. So that's why this first section is so important. You got to make sure you're laying things out. And so specifically the plan text is like your thesis. It's the central tenet of the entire debate. So you got to make sure that you're choosing one that you're comfortable with. And that by that, you want to know these different levels of felon voting rights, and you get to choose which one. Okay, so let's take a look here. Social justice harms. Oh, good. Look, they have actual figures. 6 million Americans are disenfranchised due to felony convictions. Good stuff. Well, that's not good stuff, but it's like a good stat to help you out. Systemic racism. Okay, now so social justice. I want to take a look at advantage to public safety. Felons who are not allowed to vote feel disconnected. That civic engagement can lead to positive outcomes such as reduced criminal behavior. Okay, that's interesting. All right. So I like that. So this one is definitely, so I want to make sure that they weren't like double dipping, like that there was enough of a difference between advantage 1 and advantage 2 to make it yeah, to make them different. And there is, okay? And so criminal justice is shown disproportionately. So I think this is all actually very good for the harms. It's sometimes ChatGPT has been a little disappointing in its results, but this one has figures and it focuses on those harms. Yeah. And so when you get to the inherency, when it says they're not allowed to vote in many states, well, you know how many states. So this is where you're going to cite your sources. Okay. So what I want to point out here is that notice that there are no source citations in ChatGPT. And in fact, I don't recommend doing that because ChatGPT at this stage does what's known as hallucinate. What I mean by that is like when you ask for something fairly specific, like give me some sources on this, it will start making up sources. It's really bad when you ask for source citations when it for as far as hallucination goes. This type of stuff, the sort of like big picture thinking and organizing, it's great at. Everything that it's like laying out is great, but you need to do the actual grunt work of opening up a database, searching figures online, making sure that these sources are credible, because that's what it's based on. Okay, so you need to make sure that it's not picking up on some inaccurate information. Okay. So notice how short that is. It's like one bullet point, doesn't have much information. You need to fill in that information from sources like the ACLU, at least to kind of show what it is. But you can do your own research there, right? By passing the proposed law, all felons who have completed their this is solvency will have the voting rights restored, regardless of what state they live in. So that's an important part. More inclusive democracy. You can also talk about, so because you know which states there are, so you say you could say it's like, okay, we have plenty of examples. Like if you make it that everyone that everyone that is not currently in prison has the right to vote, that means all of these states that are orange or yellow or anything like that will now be blue. Okay. And so now you could use all of them, or you could use all the blue states as solvencies. Kind of like, okay, so in Illinois, they've been doing this for a long time, and it has shown these results, like as far as democracy goes, and like I don't know if whatever stuff that you find on that. So you could actually use the states themselves as indicators that felon voting rights work. Because find the one that has the longest history of felon voting rights. U.S. state with longest history of felon voting rights. Well, let's do a Wikipedia thing. All right, history. Oh, they had the one that's the longest one that disenfranchised. In prison voting population. This is cool. Like the Wikipedia's got some stuff. Okay. Florida, Iowa. It doesn't give a really efficient answer. All right. So doesn't give me a year when it happened, it looks like, but maybe if you went through all that, and I'm not going to do all that. Okay. So there you go. Then you have the public safety. Felons may feel disconnected. That's not the strongest claim, that felons who are not allowed to vote may feel disconnected. That they might. Do they? Has anyone ever studied this? Like are we just hypothesizing now? So make sure that you find some actual evidence on that one. You know what? Instead of that, let's rewrite the 1AC. Make the plan to require all states grant voting rights to all citizens, even if they are in incarcerated. Right? So I'm actually going to go for the boldest, I'll call it the boldest affirmative, where I'm like, yeah, you're going to require that all states make it so even people that are in jail can vote. All right. Then we have definitions, voting rights, incarcerate. Okay, take a look at this. Be careful. That's not what the resolution is. See, because United States federal government should require that it's not. Oh, so it thinks that the resolution is different, and it's not. You got to make sure that the resolution is still the same. But let's see what it. All right. Criterion, net benefits, democracy and justice. Currently, millions of citizens who are incarcerated, disenfranchised. Okay. Many states do not allow it. You have 2 states that do allow it. And you would use those states in the solvency, right? It's kind of like Maine is the example here that we are basing that off of. Rehabilitation, recidivism. So the arguments are kind of the same, right? It's just that and so what that might mean is that like you don't have to go like all out and say, yeah, everyone in jail. The arguments are fundamentally the same. And so if you just don't want the boldness of your plan to overshadow the arguments and the advantages, just go with one of the easier ones, right? Where it would be upon completion of their sentence. And so what you'd be doing is just saying, hey, Kentucky and Virginia are no longer allowed to disenfranchise voters. I mean, that's you could like your plan would that would effectively what would happen. It wouldn't say that in the plan text. The plan text would say that no state would be allowed to disenfranchise voters indefinitely, that all citizens upon completion of their sentence should be allowed to or will be allowed to vote in elections as long as they're registered, right? And so notice that you depending on what level you're choosing, you're either affecting dozens of states or just 2, okay, or the vast majority or 48 of them, right? It's like I chose one where like I'm going with the other extreme. There's like 2 ends of the extremes here, and so you get to pick where you're going with that. All right, and so there we go. We have that rehabilitation. Boom, boom, boom. Solvency. You know what? I'm just going to go back up here and say, okay, so I rewrote that, but I didn't like it all that much. So I'm just going to go with the first thing that it popped out here. What are you going to do with it? Well, I would highlight it. And what I like to do is I like to actually put it into a spreadsheet rather than into like a document. See that? And watch it. And I'm going to remove the formatting. I'm going to make it green. So green is affirmative, red is negative. I'm going to format it. So wrapping, which means it makes it easier for me to read it when it goes like that, when it doesn't spill over. All right. So the reason I like doing it this way is that if you want to take notes about how your opponent responds to your argument, you can write it right next to the argument that they're responding to. So rather than putting it at the bottom of your document or something like that, it's like having a pro-con list and they're right next to each other. All right. And it's really helpful if your opponent doesn't respond to any particular argument, because then you can start using that lack of response to your advantage as well sometimes. So I do really recommend using a spreadsheet in order to keep track of arguments rather than a document. All right. But it also means that you can now start editing things that that maybe you don't want to have this really long if you didn't want to, if you wanted to cut it down one way or another. Felon voting rights increase United States, that's fine. Plan text, you could change the plan text right here, and you just see, you could edit it now. All right. But only if you need to or want to. social justice currently. You definitely need to start adding sources, okay, and research uh, to your outline that was generated on this one, okay. And just to let you know, if you've got any questions to what I'm doing right now, you can post it up in the comments live, and I can address it. All right. So, felons are not allowed to vote in. Yeah. So like this one, you this is where you're like, currently felons are not allowed to vote in federal elections in many states. That's really vague, isn't it? Like, which states are you talking about? Give me some figures. And so that's where you find your sources, and you say, according to the ACLU, uh, last updated, where is it? 2023, or you could say last accessed on March 23rd, 2023. They pointed out that there are, I don't know how many, like 20 states where people are allowed to vote upon completion of their sentence, uh, but not when they are on parole. So now you got some actual facts and figures, right? And now you're using ChatGPT to get you like 80% of the way there, and then you do the other 20% of the work on your own. And if you have that, and then you could use your notes while you're going through your speech, cite your sources, manage your time. All right. So the point is that each one of these advantages should be like a couple of minutes of you talking. The definition section up at the top should be about 1 minute. So it might be a little long for 1 minute, and then advantage one, advantage two, right? But you got to insert source citations. You got to make sure that you're telling people where you got that information, actually citing statistics and facts and figures, not just the ideas that ChatGPT gave you, but actual yeah, actual research that you did that can be verified and people can look it up themselves, especially your opponent. You're citing sources not just for the judge, but so the opponent can actually look it up and see and verify what you are saying. It's kind of embarrassing if you start relying upon ChatGPT, because think about it, your opponent is going to listen to your speech and they're going to be fact checking you. Don't get caught with your pants down. All right. Make sure that when they fact check you, that they find facts. Okay. So make sure that you're doing that. I also want to point out that it didn't end. It didn't have any impacts on the last one. So the impacts are supposed to be how you weigh each of the advantages. Why or how significant are they? You can find their significance in the impacts. Okay. And so when you have a criterion of net benefits where you have advantages and disadvantages, you want to make sure that your advantages are complete, that they have harms, inherency, solvency, and impacts. Okay. And see how everything's nice and organized, bullet pointed, with information that's appropriate for each section. Okay. All right. So this is more information than you need for a 5-minute speech. You probably need to cut it down before adding in your own sources, but then you'd be good to go. You could always do, and check this out. How about like generate another advantage? Human rights. Okay, but I mean that's like it's kind of similar to democracy and justice. Nice. Now, I did this before, right? A super hero advantage. Watch what happens with this. It's important to stick to the fact. It might be fun, but it's important to stick to the facts. I love that. Okay, cool. Rehabilitation. Oh, they didn't even do it. They just did rehab again. Okay, cool. Okay, that's funny. Okay, so remember, you have options about what level of felony voting rights that you can reinstitute, or and that you can modify and add variety to your speech through the research and examples and statistics that you find. All right. With that being said, everybody, if you got any questions, you can post them up in the comments. Contact me any way that you know how. I will get back to you. It's been a pleasure. So this is the last of the election-related topics. If you got any other topics that you want me to do, I'll gladly do them. All right, just let me know. All right, see ya.